We're going to dump into the Console Crusade podcast right now with your hosts, EJ Olson and Nick Durheim.
We haven't even counted down yet, so I don't know why you're introing.
Oh my God, count me down. Hurry up.
Trick is something a whore does for money.
There we go. Now, my friend, we are going to dump into the Console Crusade podcast. I am EJ Olson. You are Nick Durheim. We're talking today. Before I say anything, Nick, before you say anything, we're going to tell the people where to find us. It's on the internet. All right? ConsoleCrusade.com. You've been there before.
It's my homepage.
You've been in it, and it's been in you. We are intimately involved with the internet. You can email us questions, comments, concerns. Talk to us on the internet at feedback@consolecrusade.com. Find us on Twitter at eJiggle and Presh Till Death. Talk some shit to us, with us. It's going to happen. I got to get that out of the way, Nick, now, because by the end, people aren't listening to it. They're not listening to us at the end, but they're listening to us now. One can hope. One can hope. We have no listener mail this month. Or this week.
Not this month either.
That's true.
Not this year. We haven't had an email all year.
We do have Caitlin from Simplecast. Your episode's ready. Great.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Feel good about that. Nick, tonight is a last minute fly by the seat of our pant podcast.
Isn't it always?
Well, yes.
Mostly, yeah.
Nothing's changed for us, right? Since last week, we're playing the same games. You're playing Xenoblade, I'm playing Spyro.
I haven't had a lot of chance to play much of anything. Been busy,
The new pupper?
Yeah, new pupperino, and she's quite a handful. In fact, if you're lucky, you might even hear her crying from the other room.
Oh my goodness, puppies, man. Does it take you back to when, I remember when the day you guys got Sadie at the old mountain festival out in Sandy?
Mm-hmm.
I remember that because I wanted a dog so bad, and I said, Mom, I want a dog. And then you guys got the dog. You got the dog!
Yeah, it was different because obviously it was the four of us. My brother and I were off of school because we got her during summer.
Right.
So everyone was home. Everyone was around. It was a lot easier to kind of keep an eye on her, take care of her. I mean, obviously different breeds are going to act differently. So Sadie was a Labrador, Spaniel mix.
Mm.
So she wasn't quite as chewy right away. Like she chewed on stuff. She would crawl under the chairs and tear apart the upholstery from beneath. My mom would throw away 3 different chairs.
Oh my god.
Just because of Sadie. And Daisy chews on stuff too, but I feel like she's a little bit more aggressive about it in certain ways. Like she's going after cords, which Sadie never did. And that's terrifying because you do not want a dog to chew through an electrical cord and electrocute themselves. That's terrifying. The bad news.
What kind of dog is it?
It is a dachshund mixed with a beagle, known colloquially as a dachshund.
So a cute dachshund is what you're saying.
I mean, we don't know how many traits of each breed she's going to take until she's older, because I think her mom was the dachshund and she was a long-haired dachshund, so we don't know how long her hair is going to be, but she's got really cute sort of modeled markings, got the little freckles on her paws and stuff. Very sweet.
Was this a spur of the moment thing, or was this a calculated, I think we're ready to adopt another animal?
It had been sort of in the talks for the past year or so.
Okay.
And that's part of the reason why we had been working on the backyard, is making it more dog friendly, trying to get fences set up on both sides so we can just let her run around and stuff. It's funny because my first dog was named Sadie. Our new puppy is named Daisy. And two of Leaf's beagles were Daisy and Sadie, and then the boy was Buddy. So we're almost to the third, the trifecta.
Oh my goodness. Well, when you have your first kid, you'll name it Buddy.
Please don't let me do that.
Well, Nick, last week we talked. What the heck did we talk about? We mostly caught up about what happened over the 2-week break that we didn't see each other. We just talked about the games we played, and things kind of, sprawled from there. But
we had our Christmas catch up. We talked a little bit about Smash Bros. And upset some people maybe.
Leaf,
the usual.
Leaf texted us and said, EJ, I'm going to kick your ass, or EJ, I'm going to kill you, or something to that effect.
He did threaten murder on you.
Was that what it was?
About that.
Was that what it was? Yeah. He was not happy about some of the things I said on the podcast.
You were calling him out quite a bit. You're being a little bit malicious to the poor boy, and he's not here to defend himself.
Was I? I have no recollection of this, if I'm being honest. I don't doubt that I did.
I listened back, and I heard maybe 3 incidents separated where you may have called him a piece of shit, or I don't know, you called him an idiot at some point.
I don't think I did that. Did I do that? I gotta text him now. I don't recall that. If I did,
the standard casual malice that only you can spit out.
Only me. Oh, I feel terrible. Oh my goodness. I was shaped to be this way.
It's true. Society made you. It's time for me to unmake you.
Oh my goodness gracious. Nick, what do you think about my beard going on right now?
It's coming in. It's looking a little bit better. It's hard to tell over the webcam. I mean, we don't have a great connection, so it's not like I'm getting at you at a full 1080p or whatever.
Yeah, it's not great, dude. 2 weeks in, it's not great. It's as ginger as ever.
That's good.
Can I tell you? So Saturday night, I went out, a couple fellas, and one of them, Landon, we'll call him, real ginger, like real, just as ginger as you can be. Okay.
Right.
And he was talking, and he's a goofy guy. He's a funny guy. He's pretty self-deprecating as one has to be in 2019, right? If you're gonna get along in this world, you gotta be self-deprecating. So he talked some shit about, I went on a Tinder date and then she met me and realized I was a ginger and whatever the story was. And I said, dude, don't feel bad. I'm also a ginger. And I pointed to my beard, which is definitely mostly red. And he looks at me, and it was just mostly in jest initially, our whole conversation. He just fucking stops. He looks at me and puts his drink down. He's like, fuck you, man. You're a fake ginger. You're a ginger who only brings it up when it's like convenient in a conversation. You're not a real ginger. You don't know what I've been through. And he was so serious about this.
It's true. You're brunette passing ginger.
Yeah, no, it's totally true, man. Because my hair is really, there's no red. Whereas like my brother's got the red on the sides of his head here, but he's still brunette. My beard's just fucking shitty and red. But I was like, damn, dude, I struck a nerve. I mean, you're right. You're not wrong. Like, you're right. I don't mean to be like, I'm not trying to sneak in on the fucking, like, the hierarchy of, like, oppressed. You know what I mean? When it comes to,
right, yeah.
Yeah, that's not what I'm trying to do. I was just trying to make you feel better, you ginger piece of shit. So, fuck you then. So that was funny.
I guess that didn't work.
Yeah, that was a hoot. That backfired greatly, didn't it? But anyway, Nick, what the hell are we talking about today? You made the list. You give me a rundown. Give me a run of show, and then we'll jump into this.
It's been a pretty productive week as far as news goes.
Shockingly so.
Yeah, I think it was maybe the middle of last week. I think it was Thursday that we got news about Bungie and Activision.
Oh, yeah.
And then maybe a day later, we got some weird sort of tidbits about Gearbox and because Randy Pitchford is like the CEO of Gearbox, had this weird thing last year where he had a personal servant who stole some millions of dollars from his wife's restaurant or something, and this whole sort of weird falling out there. And then I guess their lawyer is accusing him of taking $12 million as called a bonus or something. And then this whole thing with the thumb drive being found at medieval times.
Jesus Christ.
Which had personal work files on it, in addition to some perhaps underage pornography.
We don't know.
Accusations say we don't know. We don't know this person,
but
they could be any age.
The conjecture surrounding it,
not even conjecture, but Randy Pitchford was on a podcast specifically for magicians, and he was calling
what the fuck
porn, which was a chat room chat girl, one of those freelance ladies, where she was doing some squirting or something, and he referred to it as a inspiration for like a magician's trick. He was like, this woman is performing magic on camera, and that was his excuse.
Right. My favorite part about that was the women on Twitter who were like, spoiler alert, it's not a magic trick. A good day in fucking gaming journalism. Like, what a hoot.
Then we got news about some SNES classic files showing up on the NES Online, with additional emulators being talked about. So I figure we'll probably chat about that quite a bit. And then some other stuff if we get around to it. But yeah, that's just sort of some of my compiled list of news.
Yeah, all of these I saw this week. Like I said, I've had a busy weekend. I worked the whole weekend, but I saw all of this. I tried to kind of keep appraised of it so that we could actually sit here and have a chat. But today, you are educating me to a point. So let's start with this Destiny thing first. This I did see and I did read about. This was, I think, for a lot of people, a really good moment, right? People were really glad, like, Bungie is now completely uninhibited by this major publisher. That is not what I thought when I saw this news. I thought this was a really bad sign for the franchise because, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a 10-year agreement and rollout plan for Destiny content, right?
Which started in 2010, so that's like cutting it off a year and a half early, depending on what the timing on that is.
Wait, it started. I thought it started from the first release. They had a decade of content planned.
No, because the first release was what, 2013, 2014.
No,
and they'd been
it could've
working
been
on that
that early.
game for a few years. So
Okay, all right. So then this doesn't seem too crazy then, because I thought it was like, from its release, that's 2014. You're looking at like, okay, this is
because Activision paid Bungie, I want to say $250 million or $500 million initially, and that's just to get the game started. That's hiring the people to work on it. That's development costs, and that development happens before the game comes out. And then also, I think a lot of people are piling on this not only because of disinterest or dissatisfaction with the product in Destiny 2 and their DLC rollout and like everything associated with the live game and the active community, but also Activision Blizzard has been making a lot of weird choices lately, and a lot of people are sort of churning on them and turning them into a whipping boy because of Diablo Immortal or because of the weird bonuses being handed out to their leadership. Or there was another thing where someone there's a sexual assault accusation, or not assault, but like harassment accusation. And it's just been like the hits keep coming.
right.
And people are sort of getting tired of the same old song and dance from Activision Blizzard, and they think it's negatively affecting Blizzard. And obviously Bungie is not owned by Activision, but they had this long-term publishing deal, and they think that, okay, maybe the problems that Destiny has had could be acute, like it could be the fault of Activision.
It's an interesting way to look at it, because so much of what Activision has done has just been pure gold. But they do suffer from like it's the fucking EA syndrome.
Financially, yeah. And I feel like a lot of the player base has been pretty, I guess, accepting of the models. I mean, you get people complaining about how Call of Duty monetizes, but there's a very vocal minority in that aspect because clearly it's still printing money.
It's the biggest game every year.
Every single year. Even when it's not like up to their own standards, it's still making shit tons of money.
Buku bucks, man. Bungie fans will be excited about this because, again, it's like Bungie gets to do what they are best at, completely unencumbered going forward. But to me, this reads as more of a, hey, you guys lost an audience. You lost your money. Where do you go from here? And how can you convince us that it's up? It's anything but, right?
Well, as far as losing money, you're also forgetting that last summer, NetEase, a Chinese like publisher and just basically media conglomerate, dumped $100 million into Bungie specifically.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I mean that could be their foothold into the East and trying to propagate their brand into China and other Southeast Asian countries where this kind of live service game is always the hotness. And I'm sure there's like 100 Bungie or like Destiny clones out there as it is. So if we get the real thing, maybe that can help them sort of maintain financial income.
100 million, man.
Which only gave them a minority stake in the company itself.
Right. I do have to say, just because I read the tea leaves here, and I think this probably means the end for what we know this franchise to be and the capacity that it is, in this part of the world, who knows? But I really remember fondly my time with Destiny, hundreds of hours playing, after the Taken King came out, really putting in literally hundreds of hours over the course of maybe 6 months. Taken King and was it Iron Wolf?
Throne, Iron Banner, something like that.
Something with the wolves or something.
Oh yeah, there's that. Yeah, Bungie and their naming is so ludicrous. I hate it. They can't write a story. They can just name everything in the story.
Right. It's so
awful.
It's so true. But it was a really refined gameplay loop, not just the loot grind, which was S rank right up along, next to Diablo or something of that nature, but also the gunplay was in my opinion, and of course I'm not like a competitive shooter, but I've played a lot of these games from the Call of Duties to the Halos to the whatever. Destiny had some of the most refined gunplay, period, across gaming history. It felt so good. It was the best of Halo. It was the best of the Call of Duties, all in this like sci-fi package. And like the game always had its shortcomings, like the lore and the story. It was rough. The characterizations up until a certain point in the DLC was just non-existent, and you had nothing to latch onto. But the loop got you, and then they learned from their mistakes. They listened to their player base, and they refined it. Destiny 2, a lot of quality of life improvements. Some of the changes weren't as widely accepted, but then they came at us with Forsaken. And I can't speak to this too much because I just didn't get onto Destiny 2, unfortunately. But Forsaken was really well received. I mean, actual fans of Destiny were very happy with that iteration and how it improved upon the experience. But of course, commercially, like, that ship had sailed. And that sucks. Like, a game like that, a living game that's constantly evolving, and it is obviously so dependent on an active, vibrant player base. If you lose that for any reason, it's hard to get it back.
Right. And Activision has very high standards when it comes to their releases and how much return on investment they're getting.
Right.
In a long-term game like that, they're not used to that sort of long-term both work and income. So you've seen them actually doubling down on Blizzard and saying, hey, you need to cut some of your long-term expenditures, especially with something like Heroes of the Storm. They're cutting off a lot of the esports sort of money that Blizzard's been dumping into that. And they're saying, hey, Blizzard, we need to get more releases. You can't just keep doing your one game every 4 years sort of strategy. It's not looking good in our books. Our investors aren't happy with that. Because you see Call of Duty releasing every year and being literally the best-selling game of that year,
right,
every year. It's hard to sort of justify these long-term investments.
It's interesting to see, because you look, in our eyes, it's like Activision Blizzard. I mean, Blizzard has had so much success between the Hearthstone and the Overwatch and the Warcraft. They have set the standard for these types of games over and over.
Not just money, but like the quality of the product and the fan base's
the engagement,
approval. Yeah, engagement and approval.
Totally. Destiny, obviously, I'm sure they bled money at some point with Destiny 2, and like that sucks. But it didn't matter how they turned things around. It didn't matter because they didn't have the numbers to prove that people were engaged or that they cared or that this could become profitable again. So.
And it's not even that it wasn't profitable. It's always the amount of profit and the amount of work you're spending to get that profit, and like the hiring sprees and all that wrapped up and say, is the percentage high enough? Or if the percentage is not high enough, is the just gross high enough? How much is it making? As opposed to, you see this frequently in Hollywood where this kind of plucky $5 million horror movie ends up making $100 million.
Right.
And people are like, why isn't every movie like that? Why can't you spend a small amount and get a huge amount back percentage wise? And it's like, well, it doesn't really matter. A company would rather spend $300 million and make $600 million and have a 200%, return on investment, but you're getting $300 million. It's about the time spent also. And I think Activision sort of they don't have a congruent sort of game plan and vision for the end product that Bungie does.
Yeah.
And Bungie, luckily, they've actually walked away from this relationship with Activision with the IP rights. So Bungie actually can keep making Destiny games. That's not the case with Halo. Halo is still owned by Microsoft, and they can't reference that at all. And people have been saying, well, does this mean that Microsoft is going to try and get Bungie back? And that's not likely because they walked away in the first place. But it'd be interesting to see what ends up happening in the future, because Bungie's talking about self-publishing, but that's a lot of work and they might not have the infrastructure in place for that. So it'd be interesting to see if they get a partnership with WB or 2K or EA and what that might mean as far as their money and also the sort of how people view it. Because it'd be really cool if they could nail it with themselves. I think that would get a lot of goodwill, especially if the product is nice, because that means, hey, Activision is the pure scapegoat in this scenario, and all the gamer rage and the heated commentary on YouTube that's inevitable to happen could just be focused purely on the big bad, and Bungie could be the plucky underdog that has 400 employees and makes $1 billion a year.
Right. So what's next for them? Like you said, so I see this, and my immediate thought is Activision is unhappy like you said, with the return on investment. But how much of this is Bungie saying, whoa, the grass might be greener. We got this investment from this other company. That's a lot of money. If we shift our focus to a different market or a different strategy with how we're developing our games, what if this is more Bungie wanting to do their own thing and it just worked out that way?
Right. And I don't have the kind of information. I haven't watched enough interviews or read enough about what their sort of goals are long term to sort of prognosticate on that and see, okay, I think this means that Bungie wants to make a new IP, or I think, I don't know. But I would imagine that if they left Activision, it seems like Activision has been showing that they want to make new games. They want more yearly games. They want more products as opposed to more long-term ones. But I think this means that Bungie is probably going to be working on Destiny 2 for a long time, and that you're not going to see a new IP from them in a while.
Yeah.
But also with a new generation coming up soon, I would imagine they want to have a new thing on the new systems, whether that be a big new expansion for PS5 or Xbox 2, or if that means Destiny 3, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's more likely that you're getting an expansion on Destiny 3, and that includes 60 FPS update on console and all this kind of fancy stuff that would really please the hardcore base, but wouldn't necessarily be a talking point from Activision's standpoint,
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I mean, I'm interested. It's very interesting to see a big company. I mean, they weren't owned by Activision by any means, but just to see them separate from one of the biggest publishers in the world is interesting news, and it's a big shakeup. And I think it speaks more poorly to how Activision Blizzard's been handling their shit lately than it is Bungie and their ability to make a great game.
It's so interesting to see over and over. And this is, I'm speaking just to this industry, but you see it all across business. But in this industry specifically, you see these monolithic companies sort of dominate the industry or dominate their niche of the industry. And they develop this hubris that inevitably becomes their absolute downfall. And then suddenly they're playing catch up in order to hopefully reclaim their spot at the top. And it's happened with Nintendo multiple times. It's happened with Sony. It happened to Microsoft last generation.
It's definitely been the quote unquote downfall of EA.
Yeah.
Or even companies like Rockstar. They used to make a game every year, every 2 years, and now they make a game every 6 years. It used to be that you'd get tentpoles and that would support the other kind of ventures, but then it waters down. It boils down to the point where it's only tentpoles.
Right.
And I've been saying this for a long time. As development costs get higher and higher, it's either they're going to collapse under their own weight, or you're only getting games every 6 years from AAA publishers and everything else is indies.
Right.
But we've seen the AA market evaporate because mobile came in and took away the lowest common denominator. You're not getting moms buying $10 games for their son because it's the cheapest thing, and THQ made some weird SpongeBob spinoff. Everything's going to the phones.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting marketplace out there right now.
Ever shifting.
I mean, we're probably not going to talk about it, but we heard something from Nintendo's president last week talking about how, they want to be flexible, and if the future dictates that video game consoles are no longer popular enough to justify creating them, that they would be willing to look into mobile and look into other markets. And people are sort of, saying the sky's falling, Nintendo's not making another console because,
yeah, that's silly.
Creates clicks, and that's an easy thing to write about and say, hey, check it out. We got a hot take on this too.
Right.
Like, whatever. I think it's just companies sort of trying to adapt and work to the market at hand because everything's constantly changing, and it's changing really quickly. And it's hard to change plans when you're making a game that takes 5 years to make.
Yeah. The whole Nintendo thing, that we don't need to dive too deep into that, but it was sensationalized, right? People grasped onto those headlines and exactly the sky's falling. But it was someone just being sort of introspective and honest and saying, we're a games company, and at the end of the day, we want to and will continue to make games. So if that means the market pushes us this way, like, we're still going to make games. It's just a matter of how does that landscape evolve and how do we navigate it? Like, we're going to.
Yeah, it's no wonder that these companies aren't more honest with the public in general, because every time they say something nearly just approaching honesty, everyone just freaks the fuck out.
Yeah.
So obviously,
and of course they're going to make a console after the Switch because the Switch has been a runaway success. If the next console fails, then who knows? We'll see what happens if they do the Wii U too. We don't know. But right now,
I think for Nintendo, they need 3 failures in a row.
They really have to know.
I mean, they got Virtual Boy, then N64, which was both bad. But then Game Boy Color and Pokemon hoisted them back up.
Well, that's the thing is their console line has been on a mostly steady decline since the NES.
Except for like outliers like the Wii.
The Wii.
And then it's just their handhelds that have really been holding them up. We both agree on that fact.
Yeah, the handhelds kept them afloat while they, even if you want to look and say like, oh, the N64 was amazing or the GameCube was amazing, they steadily did less and less numbers. They did fewer and fewer sales.
The thing is, though, is they weren't making all that much money off of hardware sales, but their software sales have always been pretty stellar.
Yeah.
Sony first party is only recently starting to catch up in the PS3 and now PS4 era that they're actually making money
What's fucked
off
up?
of software.
I was just looking at numbers, man, and reading about the last console generation, and everyone thinks that Microsoft won far and away. And while they had the head start, I think with a year on PlayStation, and then the PS3 had just a terrible launch and way too overpriced, and it took them a while to course correct. The PS3 still outsold the Xbox 360. Like, the PS3 won that generation still. And you can argue...
the Wii won that generation, if you're talking just hardware numbers. Because I think 360 still beat out PS3 pretty handily in software. And then especially in the West, like in America, I think they still outsold PS3. But also, Xbox introduced services with having monthly fees with Xbox Live Gold. And I think that also was like a huge boon for them.
But then again, you look at it, and in Sony's eyes, you're like, well, we did just as fine. But then we came into this, and we've now outsold the competition 3-1, and we're encroaching. We're fucking 100 million units this year, dude. 2019, they're going to hit 100 million units. It's fucking insane.
It's going to happen. It'll be the second best-selling home console.
It's unbelievable because this generation was supposed to be the last console generation. This is supposed to be, it was going to mark an end of an era and this shifting tide in the games industry, and it's going to be this whole new thing. Instead, all it's done is set us up for another generation of doing the exact same thing. Nothing's going to change next generation.
There's too many invisible hands affecting the market that it's impossible to figure out
That's crazy.
What's going to happen. I mean, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I probably would have said, I don't think this console generation is going to do so hot. Just because of how everything had been sort of on the decline. It's tough.
Man.
There's so many sort of things that make you think, oh, this doesn't look good for Microsoft, this doesn't look good for Sony, this doesn't look good for Nintendo, but then they just keep surprising us. So I think it's cool. It's really amazing.
I got to tell you, it blows me away thinking how time just has flown by. I remember 6 years ago sitting, I had just moved back into my parents' house. I was back with them for 6-7 months. And I so vividly remember I was working graveyards, and I got off work and I came home and I ate dinner about 8-9 in the morning, and I laid in bed and I waited for the Microsoft conference. And if I recall, they were the first to announce the next gen console. And I remember sitting there in bed, popping the TV on and streaming that conference. So stoked, like what's next? Because I had just really, this is 2013. So I had just really reconnected with video games and was really starting to play them again. And I was playing my Xbox quite a bit. GTA had just come out. And so I was playing my Xbox especially. And I just remember just that moment. And I can't believe it was 6 years ago, and seeing how, they fucking obviously laid a giant egg, and Sony, dude, yeah.
The biggest egg
he just
of all time.
I remember Twitter after that, man. Like, oh, dude, what a trip. That was 6 years ago.
Especially since the day after that, Sony comes out on stage and just cooks that egg, just scrambles that egg into a nice omelet. Like, dude, they just turned it around. This is how we share games. Like, dude, that's what I love about E3.
Fucking brilliant, dude. Just like some real petty drama between.
And the Wii U was out, but nobody had it. Dude, that was a weird time.
You know what? I got my Wii U that year with.
What, Mario Kart?
No. That was before Mario Kart. Mario Kart came out in 14. Oh, no, 15.
I thought, no, that was not 2015. That was before Smash. Splatoon was 2015. That was like the only release that was really notable that year. Except for, I think Mario Maker was end of 2015 also.
You're right. Was Mario Kart 8 was May? Was it May 14? No, it literally was, because I was still living at my parents' house. I moved to Eugene.
I only thought that was 2013 because I think literally nothing else came out 2013. 3D World maybe was 2013.
It was May 14. It was May 29th, 14 that it came out in the Wii U.
Boy, what a tragedy of a console.
That sold almost 9 million units on the Wii U. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
like
amazing.
a 75% attach rate.
That's unbelievable, man. Like
70. Yeah, everyone had that game on that console.
Oh man. Well, hey, let's jump into. Man, we got this whole Gearbox thing and the lawsuit and the.
I have not looked into it too much, and also, who really cares about Gearbox? I mean, they fucked up in an Aliens game, and they put out Borderlands, and now what?
Right.
They haven't even announced a Borderlands 3. Who cares? I just thought it was super weird because Randy Pitchford's a weird millionaire who's into magic and has porn on a USB drive. I mean, it's just a weird scenario.
Right. No, it's totally a bizarre situation. But pretty much what we said about it is really all there is to say. We don't know much more than that. Jason Schreier went on a fucking, Twitscapade this weekend, sort of unveiling some things. He put out an article. And Jason Schreier is one of those guys. He's one of the few actual games journalists. He's a journalist first. And so reading his stuff and his explanation, he's like, hey, here's the story. We didn't put, because like you said, this whole weird thing with the flash drive and the potential child pornography thing, alleged, this whole thing, they didn't put that in the lead because it's all hearsay in a lawsuit currently.
Right.
But there's substantial evidence based on what this person has said, like you said on this podcast, and it's super bizarre, man. But
it's just really weird.
It's something that we're gonna have to wait for it to sort of unfold, and we can maybe tackle it next week or the week after. But yeah, there's a lawsuit, and it really there's some sensationalist fucking claims in this lawsuit, and so it's something we'll get into as it unfolds. But really, what a trip that was! What was that, Saturday? You sent that to me, oof.
Friday or Saturday, yeah. It was just a weird sort of series of events, and Randy Pitchford's a kind of a kooky guy. I mean, he's one of those guys, like Cliff Bleszinski or Lorne Lanning or David Jaffe, where they're just these dudes that have way too much money, and they got their money because there's some weird guy who made a fun game once,
right?
And now they have this weird expectation sort of thrust upon them, and now they don't know what to do with themselves, so they kind of get themselves into weird scenarios.
Right?
Not always like this, but occasionally.
Well, let's move on from this, my friend, and let's jump into the rumored SNES emulator list found in a data mine on the Nintendo Switch. I got some things to say about this, but before we dive into our thoughts on this, let's talk about the data mine itself and what they found, okay?
Right.
They found 3 emulators that they could pinpoint and 2 unknown. They were named, but they don't know what they were. Is that correct?
Well, it was 3 additional because they also saw the string for the code name for the NES emulator.
Okay.
Which it's been sort of confirmed that it's the same emulator that they used in the NES Classic and the SNES Classic.
Okay.
For the code names. That's where they got those 2 confirmed code names and 2 unknowns. So I can't remember what the NES one is, but the SNES is codenamed Canoe or something like that.
Sure.
And then the 2 other ones are sort of the speculation territory.
So not only do we get that list of potential emulators baked into the Switch currently, but also a list of games here. And so just to go through this list real quick.
Want me to go through them? I want to go through them.
Yeah, I want you to go through them. And of course, we don't know if this is is this what they roll out immediately, or is this they're gonna release 3 of these a month for the next fucking 24 months? We don't know what the deal is. But the guy put, he put all the proof, man. He dumped it on Pastebin or whatever and put everything we need to know up there. But give me this list.
All right, so there's 22 games, not all first party. Not even. I'm just gonna read them out how he lists them. So we got Super Mario Kart, Super Soccer, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Demon's Crest, Yoshi's Island, Stunt Race FX, Kirby's Dream Course, Poppin' Twin Bee, Star Fox, Contra 3, Kirby Superstar, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Kirby's Dream Land 3, Super Metroid, Super Mario World, Pilot Wings, F-Zero, Star Fox 2, Super Punch-Out, The Legend of the Mystical Ninja, Super Mario All-Stars, and Breath of Fire 2. Mario All-Stars is a weird sort of include there.
Yeah.
But they also don't have Mario World or they do Mario World, but Mario All-Stars, I mean, isn't Mario 2 and Mario 1, or Mario 3 and Mario 1 are on the NES online as it is.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe people want to play the weird SNES remakes where the physics are weird and they don't. They look better, but they run weirder. And
It's
the music's kind of remixed. I mean, it's like the first HD remake ever made, right? Besides like arcade sort of ports.
that is strange. Here's the alternative. Do you think that maybe there's going to be a return of some kind to a more traditional virtual console, and that these are not going to be rolled out in the same way the NES games are? These will not be subscription based. You don't think that's
I do not think that in any way.
okay?
My reasoning is because they found this inside the NES Online app.
Okay.
So it would bear to reason that they would just update that app and add them to this and change the name from like NES Online to Classic Online or something like that.
My initial thought, Nick, when I see this list, is this is a really good place to start. But my concern is that they're going to release like Mario Kart and Super Soccer and like Stunt Race and Contra and be like, here you go. And we're going to be waiting on the rest of these. And that concerns me.
Well, I mean, if you look at the initial drop of NES games, it wasn't like that was all hits.
Well, the NES also sucks. We've established this.
Right, but I mean, if we're talking about purely from people who like the NES, I mean, those weirdos, then you're looking at maybe a third to a half of those initial launched NES games being like must plays or quality NES titles. You could look at this list and say similarly. I mean, a lot of these games are actually very like well liked and beloved.
Demon's Crest surprises me.
Yeah, that's a surprise. You know, that's like a weird Capcom spin-off of the Ghouls and Ghosts franchise, right? That's like a sequel to what? That's a Gargoyle's Quest or something.
Something like that.
From a NES and Game Boy.
And it's a sought after title. It's a very beloved title. A lot of these games are either remembered very fondly or actually hold up as a decent game to play.
Breath of Fire 2. I mean,
That's weird.
you're getting a lot of Capcom love. You're getting Konami love. You're getting some. Is there a Square game? I mean, is there Mario RPG? I don't see a single Square game. So maybe it's just Konami and Capcom. That's who have been sort of the main supporters of the NES online with the Ninja Gaiden and like Gradius and stuff like that.
Sure, but at the same time, there are a lot of Capcom and Konami staples that
That's
we
Tecmo, but
aren't seeing on this
Well,
list.
yeah.
And part of that is like, Konami just released their new package and Capcom just released the Mega Man package. And so,
they're worth too much to them now. I mean,
Right.
Virtual Console you could get away with like 10 years ago, but all these games are being, like you said, packaged up and sold individually. And I'm
Right.
sure Capcom and Konami are making way more money by selling it on different marketplaces than they would if they just kept it, attached to Nintendo's weird online subscription service where they're paying literally $2 a month. I mean, are you kidding me? Nobody's making money off of these games.
right.
So they might as well put out the games that they're not making money off of anyway. No one's going to buy Super Ghouls and Ghosts in the year of our Lord 2019,
Exactly. No, exactly. And so to that point, this is, it's a good idea to sort of this model, the subscription model, where you're paying a very reasonable price for access to the online. And hopefully that, our investment in that leads to a better product. Fingers crossed. It's Nintendo we're talking about. So really, who knows? But $20-25 a year and you're getting all these games and access to the online, like, this deal gets sweeter by the day. And so if this is real, and fingers crossed that this is the initial dump, there's almost no way. I feel like it's going to be a slow rollout, which is kind of a bummer because if this is the sort of master list for what they've got coming.
It's just a weird number, like 22. I mean, they've been doing like 2 or 3 NES games additionally each month. I wonder if they would do like 10 and then 1 additional each month after that.
Right.
Because that would round out to a full 12 additional. It'd be cool. I mean, I just wonder if they would add an additional paywall to this. If they would say, okay, if you want your baseline NES online, that's $20 a year. If you want the SNES online, that's an additional $10. If you want whatever these 2 other ones is, then you're finally paying an additional $5 on top of that, or like what's going on there? Because this is sort of like, I mean, people have been asking for this, and when they first they first talked about their subscription service, they did mention SNES games. So it would make sense that they would add that, and they've been quiet on it because they want that big pop.
Right.
It's sort of a drop, like, oh, we finally listened, we finally caved to your demands, good guy Nintendo, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Nick, I'm looking at the next item on our list here. And this I had not heard about, and I just read it this evening as we got on to record. Kind of blows me away. Ubisoft forgoes Steam in favor of Epic Games for the Division 2. as well as a few additional select titles. So whatever that actually means, if that is of consequence, we don't know. But
Probably just the other sort of games that are coming out. Probably not like Far Cry, because Far Cry is so big and sells so much. But stuff like Skull and Bones that's coming out this year, I think they could get away with putting that purely on Epic Games. But I mean, even Division. I mean, Division 1 did pretty well for them. I feel like Division 2 is probably going to do better if they can nail that launch. But
right.
I mean, it makes sense that they would go to the Epic Games Store. We've talked about this before, but the monetary split is a lot better. Ubisoft would prefer it if you bought them straight from Uplay, but they know that more people are playing on different platforms. Well, not different platforms, but they just have a different app installed on their PC. It doesn't really matter to... If you have a PC, you can download the Epic Games launcher in a second. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
But people are still kind of finicky about the launchers. I mean, it's just whatever. Boo-hoo. But I mean, if it keeps people from buying your game, then obviously as a publisher, you want to get to as many people as possible. But I wonder if there's any like backdoor dealing if Epic Games is paying Ubisoft for like quote unquote exclusivity, even though it's not really exclusive. But if they're just like, hey, this will draw more people to our platform, this will draw a different audience to our platform as opposed to just the plebs who keep playing Fortnite.
Yeah, it's something I look at and wonder, does this say more about Epic Games and their business model / are they paying these developers for exclusivities so as to boost their platform? Or does this say how much confidence does Ubisoft really have in the Division 2 on this platform? Where they say, it didn't do well on PC, so it's like, all right, if we can cut a deal, make a little bit of extra cash from Epic in a deal like this, we're not losing anything by not being on the most ubiquitous gaming platform, in the world, because this game just did like shit on PC. So I don't know what that actually means. I don't know what those numbers look like, but this just, I mean, Epic came out of nowhere and said, hey, we're going to challenge Valve and we're going to do this our way. And they've so far been more gamer friendly. They've been more developer friendly. I don't know if that's sustainable. Obviously, if they're printing money with Fortnite, like, I guess they can do whatever the fuck they want.
And they've had some misses. They've kind of put the cart before the horse in some regards. Like, they've had some weird end user license agreement situations where if you're uploading content through Epic, then you're forfeiting all rights to them that they can use in marketing materials and that kind of stuff. Or the stuff with they're not doing a lot to, not like curation, but just sort of siloing and having genres and that kind of stuff to separate games so you can find games that you want. And they're kind of leaning more heavily on influencers, that oft tossed about term, and having like weird built-in stuff where you could pay Epic Games Store and they'll distribute your game to influencers who will then take a cut of sales that they get through, referral links and all that kind of stuff. So it gets kind of dicey and we don't know how the money kind of shakes out in that regard. But I mean, just baseline, having that 12% cut from Epic as opposed to the 30% that Steam takes is clearly going to be a nice motivating factor for big publishers and small publishers alike, especially when it's a blue ocean as it is right now. It's like everyone that launched on Switch in the first 6 months had a huge boost just because there's nothing else to play there. And I wonder if Epic Game Store is going to have similar things where, okay, there's 5 games on the front page. There's 5 games total. You're probably going to be checking out those 5 games.
Right. Yeah. I have an inkling.
And you bring up a good point where we don't know what the audience looks like for Division 2, if there was really a substantial PC playing audience there. We know that Ubisoft has had great success on PC with Rainbow Six Siege, but we don't know how they do with Far Cry or even the other online games like For Honor or The Division 1. So I don't know.
Obviously, there's something in it for them. I don't know if is Epic cutting deals. Like, how does that work? Are they allowed to, like, hey, we're going to pay you to host your game exclusively? Like, I don't know how that works.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, that would work. That would clearly be fine, and they wouldn't have to disclose that. It just is a matter of what are they paying them? Are they paying just a lump sum? Are they saying, hey, if you host on our site or on our launcher, then that 12% becomes 8% for your first X dollars in sales, or marketing deals to say, no, because Ubisoft would be paying Valve money to be featured on the front page. So maybe those marketing dollars can be spent elsewhere, that we put on the Epic Game Store. What their marketing kind of deals looks like is kind of up in the air at this point. I'm not sure if they've even said so. So it's just a different place. They're just trying something out.
Yeah.
And it might also if you just really quickly let me
Sure.
divert you a little bit, it sort of relates to maybe the last item I have on our docket here, where I saw that Steam now has over 30,000 games on its platform.
Read the headline that you wrote, because I got a chuckle out of that.
I said Steam has over 30,000 games, and only 300 of them are in my library.
Which is actually shocking if you consider how many Steam winter sales we've been through.
Oh man, yeah, it's been a chilly winter indeed. But the rate at which Steam is accepting new games is appalling. I'm looking at a Steam gift card that my boy E-Jiggle is pressing up against his
I
forehead.
still haven't spent this thing because I can't tell you the last time I logged into Steam and played a game.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, same here.
Fully gone console over here, just because of convenience and time. And
Yeah, it's nice looking at your new 55-inch 4K TV as opposed to your little dinky 27-inch monitor.
come on, are you kidding me? I hook up my TV and play on the TV with a controller anyway.
Yeah, well, tell me how convenient that is and how much time you've spent playing on your PC.
That's true.
Your heckin' strong gamer rig, editing rig.
Yeah, it was an editing rig first. But, I don't know. At some point along the way, I just became okay with... I'm really only playing exclusives on the console anyway, so it's not like, oh, I'm missing out. Like, this could be so much better. Like, I don't have an option.
Right.
But anyway, 30,000 games.
That's too many games.
That's like... You couldn't play all those games if all you did from now until you were at 80 was play games. You couldn't play all those games.
Nobody would want to. How many of those games are even worth playing?
Just fucking chaff. Like,
Yeah.
just the fucking dregs. Where if you had the equivalent of a platinum trophy on Steam, it would just be fucking trophy chasing titles. Just 20,000 games where all you have to do is click through for 10 minutes, Just cancer.
Yeah, even the Wii only had like 1,000 games by the time it was done.
Really?
I think so.
That's amazing because the Switch has surpassed that.
Well, yeah, but indie games weren't really a thing with the Wii. Indie games have changed all our metrics.
Yeah.
People talking about, the PS4 having a 10 game install base or like a attach rate. Doesn't matter when you can buy games for $1.
Yeah.
That number means nothing now. So who cares?
Right.
Give me dollar sales and then we'll talk.
Right. That's so interesting. You're right. You literally, you could buy, I practically did that over Christmas where I fucking bought 7 games for nothing.
Yeah. So
The indies on sale. It was literally just fucking pennies on the dollar.
yeah, I was over at Jordan's. There was a game, a bad game, but it was on sale for a penny.
Yes, I saw that. I was like, I should buy that just to have it, just because everyone else now has it.
You cash in that gold, you got gold point, and you have a game.
Dude, it's amazing. Literally, that game is now one of the best-selling games in the eShop ever because it went on sale for a penny, and every fucking person over Christmas who got a goddamn Switch or a gift card, they went on and bought it because it was a penny. They just bought it. No one's playing it, but everyone has it,
Yeah. So numbers only count when the dollar value is equivalent across the board.
Exactly. Earlier, Nick, you said you have not been able to play much anything the last week, just because you've been a busy boy, getting back to work after your Christmas vacation, dealing with the pupper, the whole
Right.
9 yards. Dude, I had an empty house this weekend. Sarah was out of town for 3 nights. And of course, I was trying to track everyone I knew down. Yo, I got an empty house. Come down and let's fucking hang out for the weekend. But, everyone's busy and shit. So I ended up I got a ton of work done this weekend. I did my taxes and got a lot of editing done. But it was nice because I was like, listen, I have no one here to distract me. I have no plans. I'm just here working. So I'd work for 2-3 hours. I'd get up, play some Spyro, right? I'm working on Spyro 2 now, which is so much harder, Nick. It is so much harder than the first game. It's really testing my patience. And I'm determined to platinum that game and 120% that game because it's so important to me in my upbringing and whatever. But it's testing my limits, man. It's a game where I am all in on it for an hour and then I'm just fucking done. And I'll go back to work for a few hours and then I'm like, oh, I gotta go back. I gotta do the next world. I gotta do the next, whatever. And so, yeah, I've been doing a lot of that. But that's pretty much the only gaming I've done this week. Just Spyro.
Yeah, we're in that, you get that winter lull where not a lot of games have come out. It's a good time to tackle your backlog if you have one. I mean, you have one.
Oh,
but I know
boy,
you've been into that Spyro, so that's cool that you've been sticking with it and chugging through game 2. I was going to ask if it was similar to Crash Bandicoot, where the first game was like kind of rough, but had a lot of good ideas. And the second game was where it really hit its stride. Is that sort of similar with Spyro, or are you just saying it's harder and you start with all the same abilities? What's going on there?
I would argue that the Spyro trilogy is vastly superior to the Crash trilogy. Crash 1 is just an absolute mess in every way. Maybe in 1999 or 97, that was, innovative and interesting. But again, through the lens of time, it just doesn't hold up. And so they made a great ground up remake. But again, the physics are weird and sort of the depth perception, they hadn't kind of figured out how these 3D games work. And so, through my nostalgia, it works and it's fun. Oh, I'm playing Crash 2. I remember this. But there are a lot of kind of quirky, weird things about it. Spyro 1, again, vastly superior to like Crash 1. Just infinitely better. And that's just due to the nature of, due to the what kind of game that is, right? Like, it's a more of a sandbox sort of just collect-a-thon where you can kind of figure out the level how you choose and
exploratory as opposed to linear.
Yeah, definitely. And Spyro 1 is a game that I played a lot as a kid, but I was so young that I didn't really get it. So that it just mostly culminated in me just fucking running around until I lucked out and hit the end of the level. I just ran around and killed people or I killed monsters and shit. So going back to that game, like, oh, I remember this, I remember that, and I have these vague memories. But beating that game, there was a lot of new content there, and it was very, for the most part, very simple. It was very self-contained. So it was like, all right, I go to this world, I'm going to 100% it by collecting X, Y, and Z. I'm going to move on to the next one. And it was just very much like level to level to level. I beat the game. Spyro 2 has a lot more of like, all right, I have to go to this world and I have to unlock this thing. And then I have to go to the next world and I unlock this ability. And then I have to go back to the first world. And there's a little more intricacy, a little more, let me learn how to do this thing and unlock this thing and then kind of put it all together. So the difficulty level has been slightly elevated. There's a lot more, especially in the trophies. The trophies are what kill me because there are things in that trophy list that you would never knew existed if you didn't look it up and say, tell me how to do this. It's not so much like, hey, beat this game within the parameter of what this game is offering. It's all these weird extra and like ancillary things that you would never know unless you look it up. And so that's been frustrating because I want to platinum these games, but I'm like, I look these things up and you kind of feel guilty, right? Like there's a pride in not having to look something up, Nick.
Yeah. No, I totally get that, and a lot of trophy lists are very frustrating in that regard. Are the games set up to a way that there's no missable trophies? Can you just play through the game normally and then go back and clean up?
Yeah, correct.
Or is it kind of like I have to? Okay, so that's good then.
Yeah,
because if you're playing like Uncharted and you like miss a trophy on your playthrough and you have to go back and like reload a save, that's bunk. That's bad news.
As these games have evolved since the inception of the trophy system, developers, I think, have definitely become more cognizant of what it takes to platinum their game and the trophies involved. And you're seeing fewer missable trophies, fewer difficulty-based trophies, even compared to 4 years ago. Games where like you had to beat them on the hardest difficulty to get that platinum. Things like God of War. God of War did not mandate that you go through and beat it on the absolute toughest difficulty. Spider-Man did not mandate that. And that's really good because guess what? I want to platinum this game and for some reason, like this weird system, this incentive system that means nothing is still so significant to people. And I've bought into it too. It's fucking stupid. Like, shoot me, dude. Like it's just dumb. I don't like it, but I've bought into it to a degree. And it frustrates me when I see like, okay, like, hey man, like I want to be able to complete this game, quote unquote, complete it without having to play on this completely unfun difficulty. The only fun part about these difficulties levels is when you beat the game and you say, I did that. But along the way,
never have to do it again.
Yeah, there's no fun there. There's zero fun for anybody.
Yeah, you still see difficulty-based trophies in games that I think kind of not necessitate, but it makes more sense for them. Stuff like Doom and Wolfenstein.
Okay.
Whereas these hardcore shooters where people playing on the highest difficulty are rewarded with a very rare trophy. Or stuff like Bloodborne, where you get every single goddamn thing in that game and you beat all the secret bosses and get all the weird endings and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's not necessary for a kind of lowest common denominator 10 million seller like Spider-Man or God of War, the games that are Sony tentpoles that everyone's going to have.
So I hope there remains that awareness with developers as they go forward. And, again, I don't understand this incentive system. The trophy system is so fucking stupid. It's fucking stupid, Nick. Like,
It's working on you, though. You got that first taste with Spider-Man, and now you're hooked, dude.
Yeah, you know what
You're
I thought?
done for.
Oh, I'm gonna go do God of War. I'm gonna do like Horizon, and then I look at the trophy
You're not even going
list.
to beat God of War. You're not going to
No.
get the platinum in it.
Yeah, fuck that shit. Especially all the things I heard about the optional bosses at the end. I'm like, don't like the game enough to want to do that.
God of War, no, they're doable on easy, but they're kind of a pain. I mean, they're doable on all the difficulties, but I just didn't feel like engaging with the systems required to either choose them or get the strategies in place. I wanted to play it my way and not the way they wanted me to play it. So
Right.
that was me being stubborn. So I just brute forced it by playing on easy and whatever. I got the trophy. Suck it. Whatever.
You are a stubborn son of a gun.
Hell yeah.
But anyway, man, I think we're gonna call it there for the Console Crusade this week. We didn't think we are gonna get this in, man. We tried to record yesterday, but you got stuck with the pupper. And then tonight I was fucking working all night, but we managed to barely squeak it in. It is now 10:03 p.m. I need to definitely be in bed, and you have to work in an hour. So we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to commission you to create an intro for this episode. I don't know what the intro should be. Do you have any ideas, my friend?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. But that's that, man. It's the Console Crusade, man. Tell them where they can find us. I opened the pod with that, but we're gonna end it. We're gonna bookend it, my friend. We're gonna bookend it, so they know.
We have a website. It's consolecrusade.com. You can email that website where we'll read it at feedback@consolecrusade.com. You can follow us on Twitter at console_crusade. You can follow EJ at EJuggle. You can follow me at PreshTillDeath.
Let's go.
And if EJ edits this right, then you're going to be able to hear both of us perfectly without having this weird scream happening in the background.
Yeah.